Thank you, everybody, for joining us again on Coder Conversations. Today, we have a very, very special guest, Phil Moore. Man, welcome to the show.
Hey, it's good to be here. It's good to be here. I love the fact that normally when I do these like podcasts and stuff, people are like, in a certain way, man, you're like the late night DJ on the Jazz Channel, man. It's like, what's up, everybody? First, we're going to play a little Al Jarreau. Then we're going to hit you some Kenny G. But first, here's Phil Moore. I'm like, this is the smoothest podcast I've ever been on, man. Anyway, Brian, Kevin, good to meet you both, man.
Likewise.
Oh, yeah, Brian, did you want to give your little introduction?
Oh, yeah. So my name is Brian Russick, professional drummer, drum teacher. I'm based in Suffolk County, Long Island, New York. And you can find me on the web, brianrussick.com.
But yeah, man, yes, it's definitely a pleasure to have you on the show, Phil. You've been all across the industry, it seems. Most recently, well, not most recently, but most known for Nick Arcade.
Yeah. I'm about to say, most recently, you've been trying to
So how did you actually get on that show?
It's funny. I literally just had this conversation with a buddy of mine 2 days ago. It is the number one question that I get asked, and it is the most boring out of all of them because it's just an audition. Like, seriously. And literally, your agent calls to go, hey, what's going on? Yeah, we got this show. It's a game show thing. They're moving Nickelodeon down here to Florida. Are you interested? Like, what am I going to be, like an actor? I'm not really an actor. No, I think it's like a game show. You're going to be hosting. Like, all right, sure. Send me over the line.
Send me over. Yeah.
That's it. Just, fax me over. For those of you who need to Google what a fax machine is.
Yeah, right.
So it wasn't really your intention to be a game show host, right?
No, it wasn't. It wasn't. Game show, like, when I got into the business, I didn't even try to be in the business. Like, I didn't study and wasn't in plays and I didn't do all of that stuff. I was working a regular job at AT&T, man. I just got married. Found out I was going to become a dad. I was just a regular Joe.
Wow.
I got ended up getting into business by doing stand-up. I was working for AT&T. They went on strike. I had time on my hands. My friends were saying, listen, man, why don't you try to make some money with that big mouth of yours? Because right now we broke. So that's what got my introduction in the show business. And then going into the Nickelodeon thing, literally it was just an audition. I was doing audience warm-ups. Like I said, I found out I was going to be a dad. So stand up, you have to go on the road a lot. But now I wanted to be home. So fortunately, they were doing all these shoots. They just built what was then called the Disney MGM Studios. Now it's Disney Hollywood, Hollywood Disney in Florida. And they hadn't even opened Universal Studios, but the sound stages were working. So like they were shooting shows at Disney MGM and they were shooting shows on the back lot at Universal. And they hadn't even opened up the park yet. And my agent gave me a call. I was doing audience warm-ups. I told her a story that happened when I was doing warm-up on the show and simply told her, look, I just met Dick Clark. He kind of gave me a pat on the back and I'm like, maybe I should try for something bigger than just standing on a stage in a bar, making $100 on a weekend. And she's like, hey, what do you want to do? I'm like, I don't know. If something comes down, you think it'd be right for me, let me go out for an audition. And so that's literally it, man. And as they say, the rest is history.
The rest is history, right?
Man, yeah, that's amazing. It's like that one opportunity just kicks down the door and everything just comes from that. But it also seems like the pressure was on too. You just had the kid on the way.
Yeah. Here's the thing I find most interesting to me, and that is both like those paradigm shifts in my life all happen by what people would normally look at as something bad. Like your job going on strike, meaning you're not going to work. But that got me into show business. And then that was doing...
It pushed you into it. It pushed you into it.
And then the story behind doing warm-up, I was doing an audience warm-up for Let's Make a Deal. It was Bob Hilton and Monty Hall, the late, great Monty Hall, who started the show way back when. And I was doing warm-up. They were doing the new season of it they were shooting at Disney MGM, and they go to the big deal. On Let's Make a Deal, they have Zonk prizes, which are like booby prizes. They're not good. And we had an elephant as a Zonk, and then we were going to the big deal. And the big deal was like, I'm done. Like, I had done all my best bits, keeping the audience warmed up. I've done all my routines. The big deal, he goes, do you want door number 1, door number 3? They pick it, you go home. Right at the big deal, the stage manager said, hey, Phil, that elephant that we just had out here for the Zonk? I'm like, yeah. It just took a big, like, Let's Make a Deal dump on the stage in the back. And we need you to stall and stretch until we get it cleaned up. And I was like, what the cuss? I mean, like, I'm done. I got nothing. I'm not done on my best bits. And again, it forced me to like stretch. And it was
improv.
Right. It forced me to improv.
Yeah.
And I've been doing stand-up for a while. So being in front of the audience I've been doing stand-up for a couple years by that time. But Dick Clark, who was the executive producer, if y'all don't know who Dick Clark is, again, legend. Dick Clark's American Bandstand. Dick Clark Production did everything from $100,000 Pyramid, Password, whatever. Anyway, he comes down because of me keeping the audience entertained during this stretch, and he just said, "Hey, great job!" And I was like, "Whoa!" Like wow. I've been working on this show for a year, never even saw the man, and what was considered a crisis situation because you got hundreds of people working on the show. You have 800 people that were taken from the park to come in to be the audience, and you don't want them getting angry, frustrated. You don't want nobody demanding any money back because they have to sit around and wait on. So it's all of this pressure. And yet again, first thing, job goes on strike, but it turned out working out, Next thing, an elephant takes a dump on the middle of your show. and it's up to you to make sure that nobody leaves angry and writes an angry letter or starts demanding refunds.
Right.
And that was what got me to tell my agent, like, hey, this is what happened. Dick Clark pat me on the back. Maybe I should go out for other things because he said I did a good job. Like, not that I doubt it, but like I never thought beyond just doing the warm up and stuff. Yeah.
So like that, ultimately that gave you the confidence, him coming down, patting you on the back.
Well, here's the thing. It was less the confidence, but it was the realization that like I was settling for a portion, and maybe I should look beyond what I was settling for. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. Yeah.
I'm gonna date myself. There's a movie called Dirty Rotten Scoundrels with Steve Martin.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And there's this thing. Steve Martin's a con man. Michael Caine's a con man. Michael Caine's cons get some Rolls Royces, yachts, and French Rivieras. Steve Martin's con man gets them a cheeseburger lunch for free and a free pass on the train. And when he saw how Michael Caine worked the con, he was like, I thought I was good. I didn't know you could get all this. Like what it was. It was like, it wasn't like I was like confident, but I just kind of went, I'm doing okay. I'm paying my bills. The baby's fine. Everything's paying my rent. That's all I thought about. And when I saw, but when somebody like Dick Clark comes down and unsolicited just kind of go, you did a great job. Thank you very much. What else do you do? And I'm like, this is all I do. He goes, really? And he just kind of walked away. And I'm like, that's all he had to say. I was
like, oh, okay. He's putting that bug in my ear, basically.
That's it, exactly. That's it. So it wasn't a thing of confidence. It was just it made me look beyond. Like I said, 30 Rotten Scoundrels. It was like he was happy with just getting his cheeseburger. Meanwhile, Michael Caine was getting a French Riviera and a yacht. He was like, oh, wait a minute.
Rolls Royces and all that. Yeah,
there's more to this. I could get more from this if I just tried. I wasn't even trying. I was just content.
That's wild.
To me, it seems like God really orchestrates things because, like you said, prior to you being on the show, you were into comedy, so you're ready to go once the camera turned on. Like, not everybody can do a game show because you have to be on.
Right, and the fact that I was doing warm up for a game show. There's warm up for all kinds of shows. The fact that I kind of knew the workings of how a game show worked. I was watching the legendary Hall do his thing. So I was like standing nobody was trying to teach me nothing. I was just absorbing it by osmosis because I was in the room.
Right.
So yeah, what is it like actually being on set? Like the cameras just turn on and you just go, or is there scripts, or how does it usually work?
Well, that's kind of it. What would normally happen on a regular day to prepare for a day of shooting is I would get a script delivered to my apartment, and it would be basically what the games were going to be. It would be a little bit of the dialogue regarding what the puzzles were going to be, and then a breakdown of the video challenge games. If I had any questions, I would call our technicians because it was their jobs to wire up all of these games. And if I had a question about how a puzzle worked, then I would simply have a meeting in the morning, go home. If I had any questions, once I got the script, and then it was just trying to get my rhythm, figure out like who I was in this thing. It was the show was made to sort of like, I don't know, the show was made to coast and transition from thing to thing. But I'm a fast-paced guy. I mean, look, I'm an old man now. I'm a grandfather, and yet I haven't slowed down. So it was like, how do I fit my sensibility into the rhythm of this show? You know what I mean? And that's when everything sort of started coming together. I would get out there. The cameras would be on. I'd have things on my index cards. The show was a kind of an expensive show to do, relatively speaking. Like, it wasn't more expensive than Guts, and it wasn't more expensive than Legends of the Hidden Temple, but it was expensive in the fact that everything went into the tech because it was brand new. Like, nowadays we don't think anything about it. We can play 4 gig phone 4K games on our phone. Nobody thinks about it. But right. The idea of rigging a show in 1991 to do what we did, it was much more expensive to do. And so I just kind of went into it. I didn't have a teleprompter. I set out to say I didn't have a teleprompter. I didn't have a thing in my ear with somebody talking to me. So the biggest thing that I practiced before coming in was, what's the transition? If a prize came up, I knew to throw it to Andrea. If it was a puzzle, then it was like, how does this particular puzzle work? Was it freeze frame? Was it whatever, flash forward? Like, how did it work? Even though it was on my card. But what I didn't want to do is be that person looking down at my card saying blah, blah, blah. So I kind of wanted to have part of it memorized. But I'd never done it. Like, that was my first time on television. So again, I did feel the pressure of what this entailed. It was like a whole lot of people were coming to the studio to work, to earn livings, to pay their mortgage, to send their kids to school. And it's funny because I had a conversation with the executive producer, guy named Scott Fishman, great guy. And I remember one day, talent sometimes can be temperamental, and it can be, sort of whiny, and it can be very demanding. But I remember he and I had a private conversation one time, and I said, listen, man, if you hear me say stuff wrong, if you see me do something wrong, please don't give me the old Hollywood, no, Phil, baby, boobala, you're wonderful, you're marvelous. Because I'm a realistic person, and I know that if something screwed up on the show, no 10-year-old is going to wait till the credits go and go, that's Scott Fishman, he didn't direct that well. They're just going to look at the person they see and go, you suck, Phil. So I told him, look, man, I'm not going to run to my agent crying. I'm not going to sit up there and go, oh, man, I don't like the way you sort of gave me instructions. Tell me what I need to know so that I can pull this off so that the kids watching will have a good time and it won't be a long day. Yeah, that was part 2. If you keep stopping the reset to do it again because I'm making mistakes, then it's a long day and we go over budget. So I can't run the show under the ground with the budget, but I want everybody at home to have a good time. So we established that honest relationship. If I get a little goofy, extra goofy, I'm always goofy, but if I get a little extra goofy, I want you to come down and go, Phil, reel it in. All right,
reel it in.
And I'm not going to go to my agent and go, do you know what he said to me? He told me to reel it in. You're not going to, you know what I mean? So it was really cool that, especially in the 90s, man, everybody that worked at Nickelodeon Studios, Florida, and everybody up at Viacom in New York during that time, the best human beings on the planet. Like, they got it, man. They got what they were doing. They understood who was important. They understood the bottom line. I mean, there's a bottom line about the kids. There's a bottom line about the budget. There's a bottom line about the networks. And they all had it in the right perspective. And they would let you, they would communicate stuff with you just one-on-one without any problem. and they would listen to what you had to say. You know, I know you had my buddy Kirk on there, and I mean, he has a great story about how, you know, he needed to get an assistant. They didn't budget it into the show, but he was like, but if you need me to do this, I've never done this before, I'm going to need somebody in there. And it was all because we weren't thinking about, I want an assistant so I can, you know, say, look at who I am.
Right.
He wanted an assistant so he could put the best show on ever, and we all thought like that. It was really it was a coin a phrase. It was a magical time, and we really
and let's be honest. The '90s were awesome. The '90s were so much fun. I'm so happy I got to grow up during the '90s.
Right?
You know, the music, the TV, the move, Mrs. Doubtfire, Independence Day, like just so many good things. X-Files,
like you said, the movies, everything was cool, man. It was so cool. And
Michael Jackson was still alive.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah, you know, people who are legendary and people who haven't matched them yet were alive and in their prime during the 90s. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
A lot of legends, man. We're losing a lot of legends fast. And there are some great people out there in various genres of entertainment, but like none of them really seem to have like that legendary status. You know what I mean? Some of these fantastic artists that are out now, if they passed away, we would be sad. We would be devastated, and we would have lost a great person. But I don't know if all of them would automatically receive like legendary status instantly, like so many people have, who were, like I said, at the height of their powers in the 90s.
Right.
Yeah, the 90s was such a different time because back then, obviously, technology wasn't nearly as prevalent. So, kids that we all gather around the TV and watch the same shows together. Whereas now everybody has an individual tablet. We're not all like, yeah, did you see the last episode of Nick Arcade? You know, it's just some random video. So
yeah. Well, the other thing is interesting too. It is. I think it created a community because of not being able to watch. Look, you guys, we're doing a podcast right now, okay? So that anybody can watch this whenever they want. But if you miss this, when people watch this, they can watch it live now. They can watch it next week. They can watch it a month from now. But like, if you had to watch an episode because it was airing on this Wednesday, it became an event that brought you together. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't just about like, I'm going to see the thing. People are going to see this, and hopefully they'll enjoy it. But if it was like the only way to see it was to tune in right now, then people would have gathered, and then that's when you get that conversation that happens later on. Did you see blah blah blah?
Right.
So it was interesting. Technology is great. I love the freedom of being able to watch what I want when I want. But there's like a cost or a trade-off. Maybe not cost is not the right word, but there's a trade-off. You get one
most
thing,
definitely. Yeah, most
you know
definitely.
What I mean? You get one thing, but you lose a little bit of something else.
Yeah, I always say the same thing. We gain convenience, but we lose a lot of the richness. Like back then, you couldn't just always hear a song and then just go listen to it 20 times. Like you have to sit by the radio, maybe record it, wait months until the CD came out or tape came out.
Right. Right.
That gave you anticipation.
Right. Exactly. Or again, it wasn't that need to catch it when it dropped, because like now because you can catch it whenever. You know what I mean?
Whenever, wherever.
But if you know that tomorrow, when you go to school or when you go to work, everybody's going to be talking about it, you don't want to be the cat that missed it.
Exactly.
You don't want to be walking around going, don't say anything. I didn't see it. I don't
want to don't say, don't ruin it. Don't ruin it.
Right. So you make sure you tuned in, or like somebody dropped a new album, dropped a new CD. You make sure you heard it so that when the conversation happened, nobody can spoil anything. But now it's like everybody just grabs it whenever, and nobody sort of gets together and talks about it. You just casually go, hey, did you go see so-and-so? And like, nah, I'm gonna see it next week. Or hey, I'm gonna wait till it comes out on Netflix. I hear it's dropping on Netflix.
Right.
You know what I mean? Yeah, so it's a lot of that, But like I said, this stuff is convenient, but there's a trade-off. You get something, but you kind of lose something. And
I mean, let's look at this honestly. Yeah. Cell phones. So me and Kev are pretty similar in age. I'm 38. Well, you're 40, Kev?
Yeah, I'm 40.
Yeah, 40. I mean, when we were in high school, no one has cell phones. No one has cell phones. Like I had this huge backup flip phone.
Mhm.
If some reason I missed my bus and I needed to get in touch with my mom to have, her or my dad come pick me up.
Right.
That was like an emergency phone. It was so expensive to even make
Right.
one
That one
call.
phone call to go, I missed my bus. That was $75 right there.
That was expensive. And and then text messaging. When text messaging first came out, really, really expensive. None of these unlimited plans. Everything's unlimited now.
Mhm.
Right? All inclusive. It was all like, separate. There was a fee for this, there was a fee
Mhm.
for that.
Yeah.
But me and Kev have talked about this in previous episodes, like just the fact that we went to high school at a time where there were no cell phones. It was a very, very different experience.
You know the first thing I noticed that blew my mind when cell phones became really popular. Okay, we were like the type of family when when I got divorced, moved out to California. The son moved out here, and I got into a new relationship. And we would all get in the car and we'd go somewhere and we'd put on some music and we'd all start singing, or we play a game in the car. But like, if we all get in the car now, and I say this because it just happened. I was visiting my daughter, and we all went out to dinner, and she and her husband got in, and we all piled into. She's got this big old SUV with the back seat, the third row back seat. We all piled in, and the ride was like this.
Yep.
Ah,
How much long is it gonna be? Or the ride was like this. Ride was like this. Huh? What'd you say? Like, it was the quietest ride. I was
Wow.
I was like, oh my gosh, I remember when y'all were in high school, y'all's age, your age. I remember when y'all were in high school, there'd be so much going on in the car. It was so much fun, you know?
Yeah.
I
You know?
mean, even if you go outside, there's nobody, no kids outside. It's just like a ghost town. But
Yeah.
back then, it was like 20 kids on, all outside riding bikes, playing basketball. It's like an adventure, just going to another street.
Dude, I took my when I was, like I said, this trip I just had, I took my granddaughter out to teach her how to ride a bike. And
Oh, awesome.
used to be to go out on a Saturday in your neighborhood, and it was bikes and skateboards and roller skates up and down the joint.
20, 30 people on bikes in one
If you
neighborhood.
wanted a little
Yeah.
league game or a soccer game or whatever league game you were on, then
Kickball.
every kid was in the street
Yes.
rolling up and down. I'm not talking about 50 years ago. I'm talking like 10 years ago.
Exactly.
And we had the whole street to just roll up and down. Not a car came down. It was like, we're the kids, it's really weird. It was really weird.
Yeah, technology like really shifted a lot of things. Things are way more convenient, but like the richness of life has disappeared. Like even I believe your show came at the perfect time because arcades, those were really social environments where all the kids they would go to the arcade, but now that doesn't even
Exactly.
Right.
exist.
And
Yeah,
it's
they don't exist anymore.
right. It was an arcade was a social place that you went to, even if it wasn't a regular arcade, and it was just some place where you could just go get food. A lot of places just had an arcade. If you were a grown up and you were just going to the bar, going to the pub, or going where you play shoot pool and shoot darts, there was an arcade and a pinball machine in there somewhere.
There was a Miss Pac-Man machine set
Somewhere.
up, posted somewhere up in the room.
Exactly. But why do you need Miss Pac-Man machine when you got her on your phone?
That's the problem. Yeah, it's the problem.
But here's the thing. I wouldn't give up my cell phone. You take my cell phone away, man. It's like you gave me kryptonite, But I think it's because we all experience like life before that we see the differences. You know what I mean? To my granddaughter, this is like happy time, big whoop. She's got no point of reference to compare it to, so she doesn't know what it was before. We have that point of reference, so we get it. So that's why I'm saying, like, it's just like we're all saying, it's just different. And you get one thing, but the trade-off is something else gets lost, in the trade-off.
So like kind of taking it back to TV, did you like have a plan to really grow in acting, or was it more so you were just focused on the moment and wherever it takes me, it takes me?
The latter. Wherever it takes me, it takes me. I never really considered myself an actor. I did try a little bit of acting because it seemed like the next natural progression. It seemed to be what you do next. But I realized that I'm not really that great of an actor. The good thing about hosting is that whether it's a game show or whether it's Entertainment Tonight, you're getting paid to be yourself. You know what I mean? So I didn't really have to learn anything. If I'm playing if I'm supposed to be playing a gangster and we're about to do a hit on a town, I got to figure out how to be this evil dude. You know, look, I'm still look, right now. I personally am, and that guy singing, Lava Chicken from the Minecraft game. That's me. You know, so the fact that I had to learn how to become this stoic, Steven Seagal. No, I get paid to be me. That was the beautiful thing about hosting, And even though Nick Arcade is the main thing that people know, I've hosted some other things, even past, Nick Arcade before I got into being a producer. That's what I am now. I produce game shows all up and down. People say all the time, man, people go, I haven't seen you on TV in a long time. I'm like, yeah, but you've seen my stuff like yesterday.
Nice.
I mean, literally, we just wrapped doing the new season 8 of Beat Shazam, hosted by Jamie Foxx. And coming up in a little bit, we're about to finish up shooting the current season of Don't Forget the Lyrics, hosted by Niecy Nash. Both of those are on Fox. Those are the Fox shows talking about. Back in this fall, I was producing Raid the Cage, hosted by Jeannie Mai and Damon Wayans Jr. It was like, you see my stuff all the time, and it allows me to just be me. Everything that I do is just incorporating what's in my brain, but it's coming out, full frontal film. You know what I mean? So when you're asking like what I want to, I tried acting because you think about it yourself, like, okay, well, maybe now I need to do acting. So I took a little acting class and I did a couple things. I did a couple of commercials. My big acting claim to fame is I had a co-starring role in this movie, a Warner Brothers movie called Rosewood, which starred John Voight, Ving Rhames, Don Cheadle, Esther Rolle, Michael Rooker. Like it's kind of crazy when I actually see these folks. By the way,
cast.
These folks are incredibly phenomenal, awesome people, because I was like Johnny Local that happened to land a part in a major Warner Brothers movie. But if I see them out and about right now, not only did they come over and say hello, they remember my name. I have no idea how. The movie was directed by the late, great John Singleton. And I ran into John Singleton 1 month before he passed at a Walgreens. And he looked at me and went, "Hey, you're Aaron from Rosewood." I'm like, "Oh my gosh. You're John Singleton." And yet he's like, it's everybody that I just named. Phenomenal people, nicest folks ever. And but I did it. It was interesting. And it was what made me go, okay, that was fun. That was interesting. I'm glad I tried it, but I get more enjoyment out of not being me. Some people, the kick, the high out of acting is being able to create a new character and put yourself into a different place.
They get to be someone else for an hour.
Or find a way to channel something. How would I pull this off? That is creative, and it is an amazing thing. Mad props to every great actor out there. Me, on the other hand, I'm busy trying not to blurt out some pop cultural reference because I have to stay in the scene. But in my mind, I'm going, that's cuckoo for Cocoa Puff. But like, I can't say that because it's not in the script.
Right.
Or if I'm producing, I can be a little bit more expressive as just Phil.
So you can improv more in your current role.
Yes. There's room for improv and hosting, and with regards to producing, it's just improv. It's for me. I don't use the word improv. It's just me speaking on a Thursday. You know what I mean?
For our listeners, would you be able to break down, because I think it's kind of shadowy, entertainment. And so what is a producer? What does a producer actually do in the day-to-day?
Well, it depends on what you're working on. And I say it like that because scripted television is different than reality television. Game shows are different than a show like The Bachelor. You know, they're entirely different things. And then when you go from TV to movies, that's why it's interesting. I have a lot of friends who are into music, and like, you know, a friend of mine will call me, listen, my daughter's coming out to LA and she's, you know, she's a singer and she's wondering, can you help her out? I'm like, no. It goes, but dude, you're a producer right here. Well, yeah, if she wants to get on, you know, if she wants to get on Price is Right, I can hook her up. Like,
Yeah.
you
I
know?
don't know what you want me to tell
I
you.
know,
Yeah, right.
I can't get her to sit
Can't
down,
do
you
it.
know, with T, you know, with T-Pain. I can't do that. So,
Yeah.
but even in the world of producer, but in general, the producer's job, and that's what I find myself doing, is whatever aspect of producing you're doing is to bring together all of the elements to make that segment work. You know what I mean?
Like cohesive.
For instance, on some shows, I'm a challenge producer. So when you watch a show that has stunts on it, like Ninja Warrior or Wipeout, you know, that a challenge producer sitting down with the folks that come up with those crazy games. You want to figure. I remember I was working on a show on Nickelodeon called Ryan's Mystery Playdate, and did another one too. And my mom was looking at all these crazy things that they were doing. She goes, who comes up with that? I'm like, me. She goes, really? And then I literally went on my computer and like showed her my notes when I was coming up with it, and then they bounce off of it and fall on the thing. Oh, what if there's a pie? You know, it's like, and so, but once the idea gets pitched, first it's come up with, once it's pitched and then approved, then it's your job to make sure that everything that's needed comes together. I don't build maybe the apparatus or the contraption, but it's my job to make sure that it is built to the specifications that will allow the game to work properly. You know, I did a game.
So you're sort of like super glue.
Yes. But it can get a little deeper because somebody had to first think of the idea of glue.
Right. And
then I have to make sure that the glue sticks. You know, like for instance, there's a show on Amazon Prime. Did it earlier this year. The middle of last year. It's called Wishlist Games, hosted by my man Nick Cannon, former Nick.
Nice.
And it had a lot of contraptions. We had this giant catapult, this giant oversized shuffleboard, this big giant tank. You know, it was all of these things. But what's really funny is I've got video of us testing them, and the testing is kind of funny because you'll do something and something falls, or you'll do something and you get whacked in the head. And all right, I think we need to lower it. You know, it's like. That's a challenge producer. On a show like Raid the Cage, or I was doing Pictionary. My job on Pictionary was making sure that all of the answers matched up with what we had in the teleprompter, and making sure that the contestants didn't see them, and making sure that they were fair. So it was an entirely different job. But it's to make sure that job that I was doing on that show was to make sure that everything was correct. I didn't want anybody saying a word, and then it comes into judging like, oh, that wasn't fair, or it could be this or that. It's like, it's to see all of that through ahead of time. You know, so it really depends on what the show is. I worked on the reality show Love Island as a
oh, I've seen that.
As a producer of all the crazy stunts that we make the people do. And it's like, is it gonna get the impact that we want? Is it salacious enough? Is it gonna bring the people together like we want? Or will it cause the friction that we hope is gonna happen? So it depends on what it is. But honestly, in general, producer is to make sure that whatever the aspect of your job is to make sure that it's well thought out, well planned, and everything that's needed to make it execute properly is there, and then to make sure that it does indeed execute properly and safely.
Yeah, you mentioned safety. Was there ever some things that you had to scrap because like, oh, this might be a little too dangerous?
No, because the team of folks, normally when I work on a show, it's with a lot of other incredibly talented people, and we all bring to the table our own experiences. So if something looks like it, and we all care about the safety of the last thing you want is anyone to get injured. And so if you see something, if I came up with an idea and there was a potential of someone getting hurt that I didn't foresee, there's always somebody there will go, oh, but what if this thing slips? Or even though you said they're going to fly over it, what if they actually go through that little gap? Now we know we need to put maybe a ramp so there's no gap opening that the person can go through. You know, it's like we all have these discussions. So by the time it's the initial prototype is built and then tested by us. We're our own guinea pigs. One of the craziest things is if you came up with it, then you have to test it. And so, so for other people, not me, I'm concerned about the safety of people. But for some people, it's selfishly, I'm going to have to test this thing. I don't want to die. So
yeah, right.
But I don't think I've had any situation where it ever happened where somebody was going to get hurt. There are plenty of situations where I got banged up, cut, scraped. You know, there's this one thing that we did where we were coming down the slide and it was supposed to be some water, and the more water you put in, it slows you up. It's like a water break. And I slid, I landed in it, flew out of it, and hit the back wall. And that's when I stood up, tapped my helmet to let everybody know I was okay. And then the supervising producer who was on walkie went, okay, we're going to need more water in that bread.
Wow.
Man, it seems like you've been having a blast, man. Was there ever an idea that it was like a little too grand, or this would be a little too expensive to execute?
Oh, everything. Look, yes to every for every idea there that goes on, there's an idea that was the one that you want. Man, I wish we had a bigger budget, and it would have worked. No one would have gotten hurt, but for whatever reason, it's not just maybe it's too expensive to do in the show, but like, you know, maybe it would take all the budget, or it would take a larger portion of the budget for that episode to do this one game, and we have to monetize that budget out to do the whole episode. It's like, Phil, we can't just do an episode with one game. You know?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, man, it happens all the time. There are times, you know, sometimes the best and worst thing that can ever happen in a creative meeting room with me is this. Oh, I got an idea. Like when they're like, oh my gosh, he said it with the this is going to be expensive voice. You know.
So like, where do you get all of these ideas from? Is it just like it just pops in your mind, or you watch movies?
No, most of it. Most of them just pop in my mind. But a lot of it is influenced by what the show is. Okay, like for instance, when I was doing the game, when I was producing the game show on Nickelodeon back in 2020, a game that I would come up for Love Island would not be appropriate for a game.
Yeah.
A game on Love Island where you have to clear off the thing by licking somebody's stomach. We're not going to do that on Nickelodeon.
We're not going to do that one. Yeah, we'll skip that.
So a lot of it is inspired by the client, where you are. What is this that they're trying to do? You want two people to get close together? Great. On a show on Nickelodeon where you have a bunch of kids, you know, where like girls are icky and boys are icky, then maybe you want to do something that makes them kind of get each other messy. Like, the girls are icky, so they're going to get slime. Boys have cooties, so let's make sure we dump pie on them. You know what I mean? So it just depends. But there have been interesting things where I'll look at something, an apparatus, a machine. I'll look at something and go, oh, wow, wait a minute. And I'll see in my brain that mechanism or that mechanics and go, oh, but what if we made it this and did this thing with it? I would say the craziest idea I ever came up with, no, I should not say, it's not one of the craziest. The most crazy inspired idea I came up with was tequila inspired. The game was simple. It was a simple game. And ironically, it was for Nickelodeon in 2020. But I'd gone to a wedding. We had earlier the week, we had done a game in which we had these go-karts and these kids were driving around. We were trying to do Mario Kart Live. You know what I mean? So we bought these go-karts and we put balloons in the back, and it was like you were driving around. You had bean bags and water balloons, and you were trying to pop them. Great. But we had these go-karts, right? So I was trying to think of another game. And I just actually officiated this wedding, and the groom was Mexican, and all of his buddies and the groom said, all right, you must do tequila with us, Phil. And I was like, oh man, like I gotta drive. No. And my girl was like, I can drive. Yeah. And I'm like, I'm not a big drinker. Tequila's like strong. Give me a beer. I'm fine with. Give me a cool. No, you must do shots with us. And I'm like, all right, I'll do a couple shots.
All right, I'll do it.
Later on the evening, I saw a tow truck coming down, and they were towing one of those little Mini Coopers. So it was like this big giant tow truck, but the car was super small. And by the time we got to work the next day, not the next day, but on that Monday, I actually took my phone and I started talking. My girlfriend drove us home, and while she was driving, I was in the phone talking. And when I listened to it back, I could barely understand it. But what we ended up doing was we had the art department build a foam body around the go-kart that looked like a human toe, and had them build a hook on the back of it. So it became the tow truck challenge, the
Oh,
TOE.
wow.
Oh, wow.
But,
Okay.
but she was like, "What's so funny?" And I was like, "It looks like that tow truck's dragging a little toe." That's the tequila talking. It looked like a Mini
Yeah.
Cooper being towed by a tow truck. Looks like a toe and a toe. TOE and a TOW. And the next thing you know, we designed these new cars that looked like giant toes that had hooks on them, and they had to drive around and hook things up. And it was a race to see how many things you could go and get and drag across the finish line. The person that did it the fastest won.
Wow. Man, that sounds like an insane. That sounds like an insane job, man. It's definitely a blessing that you're able to kind of transition from hosting and into producing, and now you're really able to express your creativity in this way.
Yeah. I mean, look, and I've also been able to transition into, what's trending now. Look, I mean, I'm now working in the YouTube space. I worked for Mr. Beast's channel, not the show, but his actual YouTube channel. I'm about to work in a couple of weeks here for Preston Plays in Dallas, Texas. So you get in that YouTube space, coming up with ideas. It's a very, very, if your brain works like this, like if you were a musician and your job was to demo instruments at a guitar center, that'd be like a perfect gig, because, your job is to demo all the different instruments and you just happen to be able to play a bunch of instruments. So you're like in the perfect place to be. So like I'm making up games, to do at the family picnic, but then I can transition and do something bigger on a grander scale with the $1 million budget and do it for NBC.
Wow. Yeah.
So yeah, like in the 90s, TV was a big thing, and now we're transitioning more over to like streaming, Netflix, YouTube.
Right.
Do you have to like completely adjust your process, or is it pretty much the same thing when you're working with these
I have
clients?
to adjust the process. I'm like a hybrid, and I find it interesting that I'm always the old guy in the room in the streaming space, in the YouTube space, but also I'm that weird guy in the network space, and I've sort of become like that hybrid person, because I'm that guy when I'm in the network that's always making them go, "Oh my gosh, Phil, what are you coming up with?" Because I'm coming up with stuff and I'm coming up with ideas and ways of doing things that sort of buck the traditional method, which a lot of network, for very valid reasons, shy away from. Whereas the YouTube space kind of goes, we want to do things totally unlike TV. But what I have discovered is there are some processes of the television way that makes the YouTube space a little more efficient. So like one says, we don't want to do this, and the other one goes, we don't want to do that. And I've actually found that the perfect blend is when you take the good out of each and incorporate them into something new. And that's, in my opinion, that's the key of being able to still, survive in this current climate. To be able to mutate and metamorphosize yourself as the things change. What works for television doesn't work for YouTube, and what works for YouTube doesn't work. Like even the show Beast Games, they had to adapt to a television format. They couldn't do it just like they do on the channel. So they had to stop and go, we're going to bring the best parts of our thing, and we have to combine it with these producers from Hollywood, and we're going to make this massive thing. I've done that on a personal level, and it's rewarding because I see like both sides. I see the things that are so right with the way both sides are doing it, and it's great to be able to have an ear when I say something and they go, all right, let's give it a try.
So producing is, I mean, would you compare it to, say, baking a cake?
Only if somebody else bought the ingredients. If I had no money in my pocket and you said, "Hey Phil, bake me a cake," I'm like, I can't do it. But if you stopped and said, "Okay, look, Phil, we got a budget of $200. Go and make me a cake," man, you're getting
Yeah.
one hell of a cake. You know?
Yeah, one hell of a cake.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, so like, what are some of the things that you took from the television space and you brought it over to the YouTube, the more technological, modern space, and vice versa? Like, how did you
The
kind
the
of bridge
thing
the gap?
the thing that I like that YouTube does is that they are open to just a great idea. They're willing to hear it out. They may not do it. The YouTube space will not do it. But television stops, and sometimes with television, they're so formulaic. This is the theme of our show. And so it has to fit the context of the theme of our show. You know, you can come up with a really great idea, and legitimately, the very accurate response from network television would be, "That's a great idea, but not for this show." That doesn't exist in the YouTube space. If it's a great idea, they're willing to try it. They're willing to give it a shot and just do it. Now, what I brought over from the television side to YouTube is we need to have, sometimes I think it's better, it's good to have structure and planning, because you want to be spontaneous. You want to be able to go with the flow. That's what makes these YouTubers and these people that do TikTok, they're just being themselves. But if you actually were with them and saw them make it, sometimes they have to do things over and over again. But remember that there's an old adage that goes, measure twice, cut once.
Right.
So I'm planning for this idea, but I'm open to whatever the heck happens. That's the hybrid.
Right.
Television goes, we're not open to whatever happens. It's got to be very structured. It's got to fit this.
Got to fit in that box.
It's got to fit that box. YouTube goes, we're all open, and we don't want to plan anything. I'm like, well, if you don't plan anything, we're going to be here all day.
Yeah.
You know, that kind of thing. So that's
so it's like best of both worlds. You try to marry these things together, it sounds like.
Yeah, right. And that's what I've learned works for me. And again, very blessed to be able to have a voice and have it doesn't fall on deaf ears. And I get pushed back on both sides, but when I see people, you can tell, like, even if it's a YouTuber that doesn't tell you where they got that, you can watch some things and go, that it's almost like, you know what it's like? I tell you what it's like. The best makeup artist on a film or a TV show is when you can't tell that the person is in makeup. You don't want them to look cakey. You don't want to see the seams of the wig. When it just look, that's a handsome person. That's a beautiful woman. That is when the makeup artist has done their job perfectly. Hair and makeup are so on point that you don't even notice it. And what I realized, like, in this space, is when you watch something, and I, as a producer, I'm going, that has really high production value, but it looks like they're just shooting it run and gun with their cell phone.
Right.
That's I can tell there's a little more into it, but yet they made it look like it is just like, hey, we're just walking in and doing a thing. But in reality, they know it. They did it 4 times. They got ring lights around them. They got somebody with a bouncer bouncing, reflecting. There's somebody, but they make it just seem like, hi, it's me, and I'm outside with my phone. Let's go. That person has nailed it. That channel has nailed it.
Yeah, I see why you've really found success, especially because it seems like this more modern day is more. It's about being more organic, like you mentioned, more human. You know what I mean? And that's pretty much what you've been able to do your whole career.
Right. I mean, look, the fact of not knowing not being a trained professional when I started hosting Nick Arcade, like, I stop and I go, Nick Arcade was very different than the Disney Channel. The Disney Channel, Mark Summers said it best. It was like, we were looking one time at some people on the Disney Channel, and they were just like, their hair and makeup was done, the wardrobe, they just looked like, boom, we're going to be on the front of the magazine. And Mark and I were like, we had a t-shirt on, he had a hoodie, and we were like, you see the difference between Disney Channel and us? Look at this, look at it. They would never put these ugly mugs on the Disney Channel. Our hair is not even done, you know?
Yeah, right.
You know, and that's how it is nowadays. Nowadays, we were the people at least in the world of hosting, the people in the world of hosting that were on Nickelodeon were what folks look for now in the world of the internet. You know what I mean? Everybody, Michael O'Malley, he would just talk loud and yell at you because that's who he is. You know what I mean? Summer Sanders is just charming, and if you made a boo boo, she would put her arms around you and go, "Are you okay?" Like that's who she was on the show. That was just who she is. You know, Mark. The thing about Mark Summers is amazing is you could be talking to him about something that you want to find out about him, and by the time you get done, you're like, "Oh my gosh, he just interviewed me." You know what I mean? I know how he does that. It's in his
wild,
DNA, right? And this hyperactivity guy, this is like who I've been since high school. You know what I mean? It's like, and so like, but if you take a look at like how folks were on regular TV, if you were hosting something, it was like, "Hi, I'm Bob, and welcome to the blah blah blah." Today, none of us were like that at all. None of us were like when Mark said, "Hey," on Double Day, he was like, "Hey, wait, how you doing?" He's moving things around. He's not even looking at the camera sometimes. And then he just starts to me. I'm like, bouncing around and singing, making up songs while I'm hosting a show. I'm making up songs while I'm hosting the show.
That's amazing.
Right, and that sort of
talk about improv, like you're talking about before improv, like this is all improv.
Yeah, and that sort of thing is what people are gravitating to now in the world of social media. They're looking at folks who are just being themselves and just saying what they want to say and doing what it is they have the aptitude to do. And Nickelodeon, I think, was ahead of his time back in the 90s because they were looking for folks like that to host their game shows. They wanted just folks that just seemed like, we just got your cousin Skippy from the barbecue and said, "Hey, will you host our show?" Remember we had a barbecue last Saturday? Yeah. Well, we just asked cousin Skippy to come and then say these words. And that's what they got with, I think, all of us.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, we're kind of at the top of the hour, but for my last question, I'm pretty sure you've got a similar question before, but if you were to revive Nick Arcade, obviously you can't do it how you did it back then because arcade doesn't exist. So like, how would you re-envision that show for today?
All right, I've already had a conversation about this. There's a wrestler who wants to be the new host of Nickelodeon. I've been pitching a show. All right, my answer is this. My answer doesn't make people happy because I get asked this when I do Comic-Cons. And I've actually created a couple of show ideas, but never really took them far, or when they got to a point, they stopped. And I realized in retrospect why they didn't. Here's the thing, okay? I'm going to make you mad. Don't get mad at me, okay? Nick Arcade was as successful as it was because it allowed you to do something that you couldn't do at home. Now, when people stop and say, "Hey, Phil, we got like the Oculus, we got MetaQuest, we got all this, they got virtual reality." Yes, I can do that. I can put on my MetaQuest right now and go inside the video zone sitting right here. There were other game shows that were on television that featured video games. We all know that. Why was Nick Arcade the one that remembered and the other one people rarely speak of? Is because they were just playing video games. They were doing things that the regular public had access to. We did something that you could only do on our show. And I think that that's what set it apart. That's what, it's not just the nostalgia. It is because we did something that you cannot do at home. The other shows that did this stuff, answer trivia. You can answer trivia at family night at home. Play a video game. Well, even in the 90s, you could put a video game on the TV and play a video game, or go down to Chuck E. Cheese's or go to wherever.
Right.
But the thing that made Nick Arcade different and why I think it has more of a longevity all of these years later is because we did something on the show that you couldn't do at home. So now, I did all of that to say this. In order for there to be a revival of a show that is a cousin of Nick Arcade, the predecessor of Nick Arcade, we need to come up with what is that thing that we do on our show that you can't do at home. If you can do it at home, then it will fall. It will have the it will have the lifespan of all the other reboots that we did. We've already done a reboot of Legends of the Hidden Temple. We've already done a reboot of Double Dare. They've already done a reboot of Figure It Out. Instead of Summer Sand, it was just something. They did a reboot of Guts. It was called My Family's Got Guts. These are all like past, like post 2010. So it wasn't that long ago that all of these shows have all been rebooted. But they did them the exact same way it was before, and our audience is different now. So the hook for me, in my opinion, for Nick Arcade was, it wasn't just we answered questions, we had points, puzzles, pop quizzes, and prizes, and we played video games, but we did something that you could not do at home. So, in my opinion, the thing that would make the next step of that successful is to figure out what that is. And I have a team of production people, and we're always thinking, what is that? What is that thing? Honestly, to make Nick Arcade work, two guys invented the technology. James Bethea and Karim Metcalf invented the technology that made the video zone work.
Wow.
So even when I try to think, what is that thing? Well, if it hasn't been invented, then how do I know what that is? Or maybe it's an idea and then see, hey, can you invent this thing? Nick Arcade was birthed out of an invention. These two guys invented a technology that made you be able to interact with things and then said, what could we do with this?
Right.
It didn't happen the other way around. They didn't invent a show and then go, let's come up with a video zone. They had this thing that if you put your hand here and there, it made things go ding, ding, ding. And so that's my answer. I think I would love, I am the #1 person that would love to do a new version of Nick Arcade. I don't have to host it. I would love to produce it and get that wrestler dude and let him be the host. But I think that the secret, this is my producer hat now, the secret is, the key is, what is that thing that you can do on our show that you can't do at home? Otherwise, I think that a Nick Arcade reboot, just doing the same thing, will have the same fate of all of those other successful shows in the 90s that had like, what, 1 season, 2 seasons maybe, and were gone. All the other shows have been rebooted. And they all just kind of had 1 or 2 seasons. That's it.
Yeah, it's an amazing answer. And, you know, I agree with you. Sometimes you just got to leave the past in the past. And if you're going to revive it, you can't do it the same way.
Can't do it the same way. You can't do it the same way. Look, if we had points, puzzles, pop quizzes, prizes with video challenges, but then the end game was something that you cannot do at home, monster hit again.
Right.
Amazing,
If
man.
you come up and do it the exact same way, I'm telling you right now, 4-year-olds are going to look at that and go, what? What's this? Boom. Not only can I put on this thing and do it, I can have a conversation with people. What's the big deal? But when you saw Nick Arcade, what's the big deal? The answer is that.
It was innovative.
So it's got to be something. That's my producer hat on. I would love to do a reboot, but what is that thing that may not have been invented yet that would make it that you can't do at home?
Right.
Amazing. But yeah, man, we're at the top of the hour. Did you want to leave our audience with any closing thoughts?
You know what? Listen, I'm not going to plug anything I'm doing because, man, I'm just thankful to be, living life. But I will say this to everybody who is listening. We started out with this, and I mean this 100%. 90s Nickelodeon fans are the best in the world. I am friends with celebrities from all different decades. Some of us worked together during that time. Some of them I've met since, my career has gone on. Sometimes they've just been celebrity contestants on our game show. When we all think about our fan base, it's only myself and my comrades from the Nickelodeon in the 90s that have zero negative to say about any fan or fandom back then. 90s Nick fans, the best. The mere fact that you'll come out to a con that I'm at to hear us talk about the good old days, and you just have this love and nostalgia, means a lot to us all. We understand how important what we did is to you now, and I'm very appreciative for the longevity that you've given what we've done and allowing us to still do our things now. So that's it. Just a big virtual hug to all the 90s Nickelodeon fans.
The 90s fans out
Seriously.
there, yeah.
Seriously. Seriously.
I guess I have one last question. You
Yeah.
know, for all the young guys or girls or people in high school or college that are thinking about, hey, maybe the entertainment business is for me, maybe acting is for me, stand up. What would you like if you were to be completely honest with them? What's that one piece of advice you would give?
We sort of touched on it a little bit, but the one big piece of advice that I would give is don't let setbacks cause you to shut down. My career started because my job went on strike, and then an elephant took a dump in the middle of my workspace.
Yeah, right. There you go.
Don't look at it as a negative. Stay with it and see how
Stay
this
with it.
around to be something positive.
Yeah. That's
Man,
great advice.
It's an absolute pleasure having you on, man. And we'll definitely have to have you come back sometime and maybe ideate on some of these game show ideas.
Oh, man. We'll talk with us. Yes, let's do it. It's a pleasure being here, meeting you both. Thanks for having me on. Everybody who's managed to listen or will listen in the replay, again, thank you so much. I'm speaking on behalf of my fellow game show, Summer, Mark, Mike, Kurt.
Yeah.
We all love you. We all appreciate you so much.
Awesome.
I'd like to thank everybody for tuning in. We'll catch y'all next time. Peace.